When we talk about session hijacking, and particularly as I cover it in this course, it's going to get broken down into two main categories. And the first category is application level hijacking. Now, when we talk about application level hijacking, we're often talking about an application such as a web application. So effectively a web server that's serving up HTML over HTTP on the web. Now, there are multiple different classes of session hijacking attack that can be mounted against a web application. So for example, session ID sniffing, where the attacker obtains the session ID that the user is using. Session fixation, where the attacker actually provides a session ID to the user, and then they pull the user's data back out based on that. Session donation, where the attacker forges a profile and gives over the entire session and the profile to the user, with the hope of the user then entering some data that the attacker can obtain. And then session ID brute force, where the attacker is actually trying to guess a valid session ID of a user simply by rapidly enumerating different possible session IDs and seeing if any of them stick. So all of these are different types of session hijacking attack that we're going to look at in terms of how they target an application. The other class of session hijacking attack we're going to look at is that which is mounted against the network level. Now, we're predominantly going to be talking about session hijacking at the TCP level, which involves things like blind hijacking. So can the attacker insert themselves into the communication by guessing the sequence numbers of TCP packets? Conversely, could they just sniff that out? So could they mount a session sniffing attack, but unlike the one in the left-hand column where it's looking at the HTTP stack, do so at that TCP level in order to sniff out sequence numbers from packets? IP spoofing also features when we talk about session hijacking at the TCP level on the network. And just to round things out a little bit, it's not always TCP. We'll take a look at UDP hijacking as well. Now, all of these attacks at the network level do tend to be pretty rare today, at least compared to session hijacking at the application level. But for the sake of completeness, we are going to cover it in this course, so you're at least aware of the risk, and certainly you'll be aware of some of the history behind network level session hijacking as well. So with these types of hijacking attack now pretty broadly covered, let's move on and have a bit of a look at some of the attack vectors that we can find that allow these session hijacking techniques to take place.